San José de Costa Rica is one. The response is 546 miles from Caracas, Venezuela. Beyond the distance, both countries have never shared much history or a common past, so one would not imagine that there was a time when peaceful Costa Rica was the victim of an invasion orchestrated by Venezuela. If you already knew, have you ever wondered why? Are you interested? Go ahead, then stay until the end of the video. First, let's put ourselves in context. Let's put ourselves between the 1940s and 1950s, that is, the beginning of the Cold War, where the world was polarized between two opposing ideologies: capitalism led by the United States and communism led by the Soviet Union. In other words, a time when politicians around the world had a lot of material to put together good populist speeches. In Costa Rica, Rafael Angel Calderón governed, a guard of the National Republican Party, a right-wing party that, while it laid some foundations for the prosperity that Costa Rica enjoys today, fell into certain authoritarian hues, and therefore earned a strong political opposition. The leader of this opposition was José Figueres Ferrer, of the National Liberation Movement of Democratic Socialist tendency. As this party had an armed faction, it rises against the government still under the power of the Republican Party, and thus the Costa Rican Civil War of 1948 breaks out. In it, the Figueristas emerge victorious and the leader de facto takes power. The new government was then distrusted by the right-wing dictatorships of the region: Anastasio Somoza in Nicaragua, Carlos Castillo Armas in Guatemala, Rafael Trujillo in the Dominican Republic, and Marcos Pérez Jiménez in Venezuela. Special mention of the latter, who came to power in his country in 1953. Like all authoritarian regimes, Pérez Jiménez sought to end all opposition, with the main leader being Rómulo Betancourt, who had been a member of the Costa Rican Communist Party and who now presented himself as a democratic leftist with a strong affinity for the Figueres government. That is, Pérez felt that his government was threatened. Thus, all these right-wing dictatorships tried to get the support of the United States, who at that time intervened at the mere mention of the word communism. For his part, the overthrown Calderón Guardia was exiled in Somoza's Nicaragua, so a conspiracy was hatched to invade Costa Rica, overthrow Figueres, and thus regain power. However, the United States ignored this conspiracy, as it did not consider either Figueres or Betancourt to be communist leaders, with whom in fact Vice President Nelson Rockefeller had good relations. Rather, Uncle Sam warned that he would not support the invasion of Costa Rica. This was heeded by Trujillo, to a lesser extent by Somoza, but Pérez Jiménez continued with the plan. As for Calderón Guardia, he decided to go against the Costa Rican government anyway, and after gathering about 3,500 supporters of the National Republican Party, with 15 tanks, 5 planes, and 4 armored vehicles provided by the Venezuelan government, they invade Costa Rica from Nicaragua in January 1955 of Zin. It's important to note that Calderón thought he would have it easy, because Figueres had abolished the army in 1948. Likewise, he thought he would gain more Costa Rican supporters for his fight. However, this did not happen, as Figueres' government still had the military capacity to repel an invasion. Likewise, there were some paramilitary groups like the Revolutionary Civic Union that in total replicated the number of soldiers sympathetic to Calderón's invasion, and even though some T-6 Texan planes from the Venezuelan military aviation carried out minor bombings on the capital San Jose, this was not enough, and the government forces repelled the ground invasion. The final battle of the brief conflict took place at the Santa Rosa Hacienda in the province of Guanacaste, where the historic battle against William Walker's filibusters was fought. The invasion orchestrated by Venezuela had failed. Figueres then continued in power until 1958 and even governed subsequently during another term. And not only that, but Marcos Pérez Jiménez was overthrown 3 years later, and Rómulo Betancourt came to power in Venezuela. So there is no doubt that this not-so-well-known episode can be considered a victory for Costa Rica, a country that did not have an army. How do you think history would have been if this invasion orchestrated by Venezuela had been successful? Don't forget to leave your comment and subscribe to the channel. Also, I leave in the description my social networks, and in case you want to see the new videos in pre-premiere and have a greater interaction with me. Your donations on Patreon, unamanito.net, or channel members are welcome. See you next time.